Hey, it's Dino, and today I want to talk to you about RFC7523, which is a standard that describes how to exchange a JWT for an opaque OAuth token. And you can find that at this URL. This is on the standards track, and it describes how it works and the motivations for same. But really, this is just a way that you can use a signed payload to present to an OAuth server and have that OAuth server deliver an opaque OAuth token to you. So what I've done is put together some working code, a working API proxy that demonstrates how to do this in Apigee Edge. And this is all up on GitHub, and I provided a little README that describes what it does and how it works and why you'd want to do that, and so on. You can go and clone this and use it yourself. But I'll show you very briefly how this works. I've also put together in that repo a set of tools that help you, just helper scripts that help provision this thing. So let's have a look. I've cloned the repo, and this is the first script I want to show you. This all runs on a bash prompt, by the way. If you're a Windows user, I'm sorry. I haven't produced that for Windows. But this is the script, and if you just run it bare, it'll give you a usage. But basically, you need to provide the org name. In my case, that's this one we'll use. An environment name, we'll use test, and then you need to authenticate. Provide some authentication for curl. And what this thing is going to do is use the Apigee Edge Administrative API to provision various things, including an API proxy, an API product, a developer, and an app that will help demonstrate this RFC7523 thing. So I use -n, and that just pulls credentials from the .NET RC file, but if you don't have that set up, you can specify your creds with -u, or just specify the username with -u, and it'll prompt for your password. Anyway, it all works the same. So what this is going to do now is use the administrative API via curl to provision all of those things. And this will just take a few minutes. You'll see right now it's building the API proxy, importing the API proxy, deploying it, and then building the other artifacts like the product, the developer, and the developer app. One thing of note, in the developer app, what we're doing is provisioning a custom attribute. And in Apigee Edge, a custom attribute is just a string value. And what we've injected into that is the PEM encoded public key for a key pair for this developer app. And what's going to happen is at runtime, the Apigee Edge proxy is going to retrieve that public key and then verify the inbound JWT, verify the signature on that using that public key. So that means when we generate the JWT on the client side, we're going to need to use the corresponding private key for that public key. So that public key and private key are also generated, and the results are sort of noted here. So we've got all that provisioned, and I can actually go up and look in my Apigee Edge organization, and what I'll see is a new API proxy that was just provisioned a minute ago. We can have a look into that and see what it looks like. Click the Develop tab, and you'll see there is one flow. It's the token exchange flow, and there's a bunch of checks just to verify that the request is valid. And then we do some other things, and then parse the JWT that's inbound, and then issue on the response side. We'll issue the OAuth token, the opaque OAuth token. So all that is kind of set up for us automatically, really nice. And then we also have the API product that's set up, a developer, and a developer app that is set up for the purposes of this demonstration. I can see the consumer key is here, and that's the same thing that was displayed right here. So that's all done by the provisioning script. So the next thing we want to do is actually create the JWT. And in order to do that, what we have to do is get a Java tool to make that happen. And I've actually provided the Java tool that creates JWTs on the client side. But in order to build that, you need Maven. So what I did was I just cd into the JWT and then build this thing, and now I have a Java tool that's going to create JWTs for me. And then I can actually use a wrapper script called create JWT, which invokes that Java tool, and what it wants is the private key that was shown by the provisioning script. So we'll cut and paste that. And then also the consumer key for the app, also emitted by that provisioning script. And this is going to run that Java program and produce the JWT. So there's our JWT. These are long strings, base 64 encoded strings. So let's have a look at what it looks like inside a JWT debugger. We can just paste that in, and you'll see I have the issuer, which is, in this case, the client ID of the Apigee Edge app. And that is by definition, that's by design for RFC7523, because what we're doing, this JWT is identifying the app. It's identifying the app. So the JWT is an assertion made by the app, signed by the app, and it includes the app identifier. There are a couple other things here. The audience and the scope, those are settable by you. You can have that be whatever you want. And then two other meaningful things in the JWT payload, the expiry and the issued at time. So the issued at time is just now, just when I ran that tool. And the expiry, you kind of want that to be short. So 5 minutes is a reasonable time. You may even want to make it tighter than that, say 120 seconds. And the reason for that is you want this JWT to be a kind of a one-use, use it right now kind of thing that identifies the client when it is asking for an opaque OAuth token. So we don't need a long lifetime for this JWT, and that Java tool by default gives it a 300-second lifetime. All right, so that's the valid JWT. And this tool helpfully provides a curl command that I can use with that JWT in it to actually invoke the endpoint. But it's not going to work because it's kind of got this generic org name and end name thing. So what I'll do is I'll just replace those generic ones with my actual org name and environment. Before we do that, let's go back into the API proxy and just turn on tracing for that proxy. So we'll turn it on. And go back to my terminal and invoke it, and what it's done is sent in that JWT. The Apigee Edge proxy has run through all of these policies to verify that the JWT has not been used before, that it's not expired, that the lifetime is not too long, out of scope, that the client, that the issuer is a valid client ID inside Apigee Edge, it's a valid consumer key. That the signature parses according to the public key. And if all of that stuff checks out, then we'll generate the OAuth token and send that back. So this is all kind of the flow for that. And one thing you'll note is you get that access token, and now this is reusable as an access token that you're familiar with in Apigee Edge. There is no refresh token. If the client, this thing expires in about 30 minutes, this access token, because that's how I set up the generate access token policy. But when the client needs a new access token, it's just going to get a new JWT and send this kind of payload in again. Now I want to show you something. What I've done is made it so this is a one-use only JWT on the server side. So if the server sees the JWT again, what it's going to do is reject that because it's previously been used. Or another case that you'll see a failure by the server is if you wait too long between the time you generate the JWT and the time you try to use it, it'll expire. The JWT itself will expire, and Apigee Edge will reject that. So that's all pretty nice. What this shows you is that you can implement RFC7523 token exchange in your API proxies that run in Apigee Edge today. You can just use this code right off the shelf. Last thing I'll show you is the teardown. So I produced a tool, I just extended the script to use the Apigee Edge administrative APIs to tear down all those artifacts that were set up during initial provisioning. And to do that, you just apply the -R option, run that same script, and what it's going to do is look for all the artifacts that were created, the API proxy, the app, the product, the developer, and so on, and just remove all those. So really easy, kind of safe to do in your organization, and keeps things nice and clean. So that's it. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions on this, please hit me up on community.apigee.com, and I'll be glad to answer.